The United Kingdom has been making secret and strategic contributions to Ukraine's war effort, and the latest one has the potential to completely ruin Vladimir Putin's entire week. A recently revealed document, coming directly from the British Ministry of Defence, MOD, confirms that the UK sent almost 100 of its most powerful self-propelled howitzers straight to Ukraine, providing an invaluable boost to the country's offensive and defensive capabilities. The most astonishing aspect of this story is that neither the UK nor Ukraine made a big deal out of it. There were no press releases, no major media reports, no official announcements. Instead, a British citizen named John Felix, who goes by the handle NedSnow2019 on X, formerly Twitter, filed a Freedom of Information Act (FOIA) request, asking the MOD several questions about various arms and systems that the UK had potentially provided to Ukraine. The first question on John's list was this: given the UK already specifies to have pledged all its AS-90s to Ukraine, I would ask how many does all entail? The 99 in service in late 2021, the total fleet of 136 AS-90s, or some other amount. He had to wait a while for an answer, but he eventually posted it in full on his X account, revealing the ministry's response. The UK has donated all 99 of its remaining AS-90 self-propelled artillery systems declared in the UN ROCA of 2021. In other words, the UK handed over its entire fleet of AS-90s to Ukraine. To understand why that's such huge news, we have to take a closer look at the systems themselves. The AS-90, artillery system for the 1990s, also known under the name Gun Equipment 155 mm L-131, is an armored self-propelled howitzer with an extensive and successful track record of service with the British Army. It was developed back in the 1980s when the British Army was looking for a new, stronger, smarter, and all-round superior howitzer to the American-made M109 that the UK had been using since the mid-1960s. A company named Vickers Shipbuilding and Engineering, which had extensive experience in building warships, submarines, and armaments, answered the Army's call. It designed and developed the AS-90, a 45-ton tracked howitzer, measuring up at over 32 feet, 9.9 meters long, 11 feet, 4 meters wide, and almost 10 feet, 3 meters tall, with enough space on the inside for up to 5 crew members at a time. Powered by a Cummins VTA 903T6X 14.8 LV8 diesel engine with 660 horsepower, the AS-90 boasts a peak speed of 34 miles per hour, 55 kilometers per hour, and a maximum operational range of up to 230 miles, 370 kilometers. It has the agility of an infantry fighting vehicle, combined with the firepower of a high-end howitzer. Its main gun, a 155 mm LE-39, is capable of firing standard 39 caliber long barrel charges just over 15 miles, almost 25 kilometers. It can also be configured to fire 52 caliber long barrel base bleed ammunition even further, up to around 19 miles, 30 kilometers. Base bleed ammunition is designed to expel gas into the low pressure area behind the shell, to reduce drag and cover more ground than standard munitions. The AS-90 also boasts 3 separate firing modes: a burst mode, in which it can fire 3 rounds every 10 seconds, an intense mode, with 6 rounds per minute for a maximum duration of 3 minutes, or a sustained mode, with the system firing 2 rounds per minute over the span of a full 60 minutes. Other key features include the AS-90's ability to transition from travel to firing mode in under a minute, as well as its multiple round simultaneous impact (MRSI) technology. MRSI enables this howitzer to fire no less than 3 shells at different trajectories in rapid succession, almost doing the work of 3 separate systems in one. This is hugely beneficial on the battlefield, as it makes life 3 times harder for the enemy, leaving them precious little time to respond or take evasive action as a flurry of explosive shells rain down on their heads. If you are impressed by the tactical capability of this system, hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you in-depth analyses like this. But the AS-90 isn't just capable of dishing out damage. With its all-welded steel armor, which is 17 mm thick in certain places, it's also capable of taking a few hits without falling to pieces like weaker, weedier artillery alternatives. It comes fitted with a 7.62 mm L7 machine gun as a secondary armament, and each unit can carry up to 48 projectiles and charges at a time, with 31 in the turret and 17 in the hull, along with 1,000 machine gun rounds. A grand total of 179 of these systems were produced, and the AS-90's capacities were officially put to the test for the first time in Bosnia and Kosovo in the 1990s, during the Yugoslav Wars, then again in 2003, during the Iraq War, when 32 of these systems were used to shell Iraqi mortar positions during one of the biggest opening battles of the conflict, the Battle of Basra. Commander of the Field Army at Land Command at the time, General Robin Brims, expressed his delight at the incredible precision of the AS-90, stating, "The phenomenal accuracy of it was way beyond anything that one might have expected," and citing this particular howitzer as one of the 5 big battle winners for British forces. Former UK Defence Minister Adam Ingram also spoke highly of the AS-90's exceptional performance, stating, "The AS-90 self-propelled gun also performed well, delivering a great weight of accurate fire support with 95% availability. But major military powers like the UK can't afford to stand still. They always have to be on the lookout for the next big thing." And despite the AS-90's impressive track record, the British Army eventually moved on to the Swedish Archer artillery system, which brought several big benefits to the table in terms of fire rate and automation technology. At that point, the UK had a choice. It could either scrap its old AS-90s, mothball them, or sell them off to a smaller nation that may not need or be able to afford the most advanced artillery systems. But with the ongoing invasion of Ukraine by Russia, the British Army also had a fourth option. It could simply transfer its AS-90 fleet to Kyiv, getting rid of assets that were no longer needed and providing a big boost to the Ukrainian armed forces, all at the same time. Fortunately, the UK made the right call. We already knew that Britain had sent some AS-90s to Ukraine back in 2023, soon after setting up its new, smaller fleet of 14 Archers. It reportedly sent 32 of these artillery systems across the Channel and into Kyiv. However, with records showing that the UK still possessed at least 50 additional AS-90s, many military analysts began to wonder what was going to happen to the remaining units. Were they being scrapped, sold, or secretly shipped to Ukraine without anyone else knowing? Well, now we know, thanks to John Felix's FOIA request. A grand total of 99 of these systems were sent to Ukraine. It's important to note, however, that not all of those systems were originally in active service. According to Felix, the British Army had 99 functional AS-90s in service. Those are the ones confirmed to have been transferred to Ukraine. Another 37 howitzers were awaiting disposal, meaning they were no longer operational. But that doesn't make them worthless. Ukraine's engineers can either restore some of those older units or use them as a critical source of spare parts to keep the frontline guns running as they take damage from Russian bombs, missiles, or drones. And even with those 37 not in fighting condition, Ukraine still ends up with nearly 100 fully functional AS-90s to strike enemy positions, fortifications, troop concentrations, and more. I'll share this video so more people know about the cleverness of British military aid. In short, this is a massive win for Ukraine, for several significant reasons. First, the introduction of the AS-90 adds an additional layer to Ukraine's increasingly diverse artillery arsenal. It currently operates a rich mix of systems, including older Soviet-era models such as the 2S-3 Akatsiya and the 2S-19 Mesta, which are both relatively old, but reliable, battle-proven, and familiar to Ukraine's operating crews, who have been working with these systems for many years. Ukraine also operates a range of Western artillery, including British M777s, French Caesars, and German PZH-2000s, along with an increasingly broad range of NATO-standard 155mm systems too. The AS-90 brings something different to the table, offering several benefits over some of the other options in the arsenal. It moves faster than the Msta, for example, boasts superior durability than the PZH-2000, and tends to tackle tough, muddy ground more efficiently than the Caesar. In fact, it's one of the best artillery systems in terms of withstanding cold, wintry conditions and difficult terrain. Perfect for a place like Ukraine, especially during the colder and harsher periods of the year. Plus, unlike some of the older Soviet systems, the AS-90 is entirely compatible with NATO munition. All in all, it's a real workhorse of a system, an indispensable addition to an already excellent array of artillery. Russia, meanwhile, fields 3 main types of artillery, including the very same Mistas and Akatsiyas as Ukraine, along with the 2S-35 Koalitsiya SV, which is eventually set to replace the Insta, but only exists in small numbers for the time being. That means that Russia has significantly less diversity in its artillery arsenal, restricting the range of ways in which it can deploy its systems to deal damage to Ukrainian targets. Russia still has the advantage of quantity. boasting big numbers of both artillery systems and Soviet-era munitions. But Ukraine has the edge when it comes to quality and variety, Sue. That means that Russia, as always, is effectively forced to rely on its classic brute force strategy, bombarding Ukrainian positions with its narrow selection of artillery systems and hoping to wear down its opponent's defenses over time. Ukraine, meanwhile, can operate much more intelligently and strategically, picking and choosing the ideal artillery for every occasion, whether it be the Mista, the Caesar, or, now, the AS-90. It can also combine and layer its different systems together in key frontline locations or close to big cities and important infrastructure, ready to defend itself or carry out assaults on enemy positions with efficiency, precision, and speed. And speed really is one of the best elements of the AS-90. Some self-propelled artillery systems move quite slowly or take a long time to transition between travel and fire modes, opening them up to enemy attacks. The AS-90 is different. It can not only fire quickly, but rapidly hit the road and reposition to other locations when it's done. So before Russian forces even have time to figure out what's going on or start thinking about striking back, the AS-90 is already somewhere else. With this howitzer at its disposal, Ukraine becomes an even more flexible and efficient artillery force, much more in line with NATO standards. So, while Russia persists with its wasteful tactics of bombarding the same spot for hours on end, hoping that at least some of its shells hit their targets, Ukraine has the power to roll out its AS-90s, launch reliable, precise strikes at enemy command posts, fortifications, or troop concentrations, and roll right back out, dealing its damage in a matter of minutes, if not even faster. In short, additions like the AS-90 are accelerating Ukraine's advance towards becoming one of the most modern military superpowers on the planet, with a force to rival some of the biggest and strongest nations of them all, while leaving Russia looking increasingly outdated and outmatched with its rusty Soviet relics and unsustainable artillery doctrines. The precision, firepower, and unique advantages, like MRSI capabilities, put the AS-90 in a class of its own, and Ukraine isn't just receiving a half dozen of these systems, it's getting almost 100 of them, with a healthy supply of spare parts and ammunition to keep them running. Comment below. What do you think is the biggest impact of this secret AS-90 donation on the battlefield? Ukraine has a track record of getting the maximum value out of almost every single armament or asset Western allies send their way. We've seen Kyiv's defenders keep other artillery systems, like the aforementioned M777s and Caesars, up and running for much longer than many Western experts anticipated, and it's highly likely that they'll do the exact same thing with these AS-90s too, ensuring that each one lasts as long as possible and deals as much damage as it can before being retired or replaced. And the good news doesn't end there for Ukraine. The Freedom of Information Act request also revealed that the UK has also shipped a large amount of M109 self-propelled howitzers to Ukraine, as noted in the response to John Felix's second question. The pledged 28 M109s to Ukraine corresponds to the total number of M109s pledged. All of the 28 M109s have been delivered to Ukraine. His third question, regarding 54 L119 towed howitzers that the UK had pledged to send to Ukraine, also received a positive response. All L119 light guns pledged to Ukraine have been delivered. And the same goes for his fourth query, about combat vehicle reconnaissance, tracked, CVRT units. All the UK's remaining stocks of CVRTs were delivered to Ukraine in 2024, amounting to 168 in total. These exciting additions bring even more power and diversity to Ukraine's ever-expanding arsenal. The M109s, for example, are 150mm self-propelled howitzers, originating in the United States and introduced to service in 1963. While systems like the AS-90 have since supplanted them in certain countries, the M109 remains one of the most commonly used Western indirect fire support weapons in the world today, with modern variants like the M109A6 Paladin and M109A7 forming the backbone of the U.S. Army's artillery arsenal. The L119, meanwhile, is a flexible lightweight howitzer capable of both providing direct fire support at targets like armored vehicles and structures, or indirect fire to support combat arms at ranges in excess of 6 miles, 10 kilometers. It can be towed by trucks or carried by helicopters and fires NATO-standard 105mm ammunition. It can also fire a broad range of bombs, including high explosive munitions, smoke bombs, and other varieties. Finally, the CVRT is a family of armored fighting vehicles, famed for their compact size, excellent mobility, and diversity. The family includes such models as the Spartan Armored Personnel Carrier, the Sultan Command and Control Vehicle, and the Samson Armored Recovery Vehicle, with options available for almost any type of mission or objective. Not all of these additions are game changers on the ground for Ukraine, but every single one will help Kyiv's defenders in some way or another, whether that's by giving them new heavy weapons to attack Russian fortifications or additional vehicles for transporting troops and supplies from place to place. And the UK's aid isn't ending there. In November 2025, reports also emerged of Britain sending yet another batch of long-range Storm Shadow cruise missiles to Ukraine. Introduced in 2003 and also known under the name Scalp EG, these Franco-British missiles cost around $2.5 million each. Each one weighs in at 2,900 pounds, or 300 kilograms, and carries a warhead weighing almost 1,000 pounds, 450 kilograms. They can travel at peak speeds of Mach 0.95, just below the speed of sound, thanks to their microturbo TRI 6030 turbojet engines, and have a maximum operational range of 342 miles, 550 kilometers. Each Storm Shadow also comes equipped with both GPS and inertial navigation systems, combined with terrain reference navigation technologies, making them highly precise and ensuring that each one has the best chance of striking its target, even if they encounter enemy jammers or other electronic warfare measures en route to their destination. Ukraine has used Storm Shadows on numerous occasions to strike high-value Russian targets, blowing up the likes of ammunition depots, logistics hubs, and command posts deep behind enemy lines. With more of these missiles at their disposal, Kyiv's forces will be able to plan additional strikes on those same kinds of targets or other important elements of Russian infrastructure, like pipelines and oil refineries to worsen the Kremlin's fuel crisis, or military production plants to disrupt the flow of drones, missiles, and other assets to Russia's frontline forces. And it's important to remember that all of these assets are being provided by just one ally, the United Kingdom. Ukraine has many more allies dotted across the European Union and elsewhere around the world, from Germany, Poland, and Sweden to the United States and even non-NATO nations like Japan and Australia, all of whom have provided and will continue to provide aid in some form or another. Russia, meanwhile, is forced to rely on an incredibly small pool of so-called allies, many of whom are simply attempting to make the most of the situation and extract as much money from the Kremlin as they can, such as Iran, China, and North Korea. Ukraine may not be able to win this war alone, but with so many powerful and generous friends backing it up and providing all-important, game-changing assets like tanks, air defenses, ammunition, and AS-90 artillery systems, it has an increasingly realistic chance of victory. Don't forget to comment if you think Russia will be able to adapt to this new tactical reality. To keep up with the latest breaking news from Ukraine and learn more about the various weapons and systems being sent to Kyiv from its allies across the globe, subscribe to our channel today and turn on notifications. And if you enjoyed this analysis, share it with your friends. The introduction of the multiple round simultaneous impact (MRSI) capability, a feature prominently highlighted in the AS-90, represents a significant leap in tactical artillery deployment for the Ukrainian forces. This technology fundamentally changes the dynamics of counter-battery fire and target engagement. Traditionally, an artillery unit would fire a round, wait for the shell to land, and then fire another, giving the enemy time to detect the firing position, flash, sound, radar signature, and initiate a counterstrike. With MRSI, the AS-90 can fire 3 or more shells in rapid succession, adjusting the trajectory and charge for each so that they all arrive at the target area almost simultaneously. This capability is a game changer because it maximizes the destructive power on the target while drastically minimizing the time the AS-90 remains in a single position. The shoot and scoot doctrine is elevated to a new level, making the AS-90 an extremely difficult target for Russian counter-battery systems to neutralize. The sheer volume of fire delivered in a single, concentrated burst can overwhelm enemy defenses, command posts, or troop concentrations before they even realize they are under attack. This technological edge is a clear example of how Western quality and innovation are directly challenging Russia's reliance on mass and quantity, further tilting the tactical balance in favor of Ukraine's defense. The ability to deliver such a concentrated, precise, and rapid strike is a force multiplier that will undoubtedly save Ukrainian lives and increase the effectiveness of their offensive operations.